Hello, readers. It's E. Scott Clevenger with Sign In Books, and I wanted to welcome you to part two in the Shadows. I came up with this idea at the beginning of the year and then promptly fell right off of it. So, apologies in the distance between book part one and part two. I'm hoping that parts 3 and 4 will come right behind them and get into a better rhythm with this particular series. But thank you for being patient and staying with me. So, today I wanted to talk a little bit about the construction of the books and how we putting together our series. So the theme of us returning to a more classical fantasy, a return to the traditional elements of fantasy books such as Lord of the Rings and the Wheel of Time series. These were books that were very important to Grayson and myself growing up. We fell in love with the richness of the world building. We fell in love with the transportation into a new realm with infinite possibilities, and understanding that there's a depth to the worlds that we explored in these stories when we were younger. And we wanted to bring back those guideposts, those benchmarks, those elements that provided us such hope when we were younger. So one of the first things we did, I'm gonna take my glasses off, was kind of going back to the first things I want to see when I open a new fantasy book, something I love, is being able to see the map and understand at a visual level where these characters are going to be living and where they're going to be exploring and wandering, seeing the kind of landscape that will be before their eyes during the course of the story. Another thing that we wanted to do was bring in a good table of contents. Again, a roadmap, a guidepost to the reader on how deep the story is going to go, how many chapters there are going to be, kind of that element of pacing is going to look like. You kind of see the average length of a chapter and understand the density of the book that you're about to get into. And I felt that that was really important. We also wanted to bring in chapter titles. Chapter titles are one of those controversial elements that I think I've seen in the fantasy space where you worry about spoilers or tipping the hat too far and understanding that could be. But I think if you do it right, or if you approach it correctly, it really adds a mystery, an element of moment when a reader gets to that brand new chapter. They see the title and they go, oh, I wonder where this is going to go ahead, or oh no, this is going to be where I expect them to go. And one of the ones that I think we're most proud of, or at least one of my personal favorites, is chapter 25, The Kern Job, in book 1. You understand that Jesse is a thief. And when he goes, we open on the warehouse job. That's chapter number 1. And you know that he's breaking down the elements and he's meticulously plotting his theft in this space. And then there's another chapter called the Devros job, where again Jesse and Thorn are guiding through this treacherous path and sneaking into this place. And then you get to have Jesse and Simon meet up. They start becoming friends. They start putting their elements together. You start to build this bond between these two characters. And when there's a moment in the story where Jesse's crime lords are starting to turn their eyes towards some of Simon's past, particularly Simon's father, Kern, you see the Kern Job come up as a chapter title, and you think, Jesse, no, we can't really be doing this, can we? And then we get to see how it unfolds. Does he betray Jesse or Simon? Does he take this job? Does he go in and get serious about this? What goes through Jesse's head as he has to approach where his old life and his new life are beginning to collide. And I really just love that ability, that title, being able to pop that out and go, man, I really hope this doesn't go the direction that it could. And we really appreciated that. And then I think the final thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to add in the appendix. And fantasy. I had a reader over the last book fair talk to me about that. Fantasy speaks like another language. It's so away from the elements of the real world that she is familiar with that sometimes it can be intimidating. So we wanted to bring a guide for the characters, a guide for the magic system, a guide for the politics, a guide for the history, a guide for all the species, because we have a lot of species. I'll have a part about that later. I wanted to dive into these elements and really provide the readers a map to understand the richness of the world and what that means. And I loved the back of all of Jordan's Wheel of Time books and keeping track of my characters and where were they versus in the first book, where they were in the seventh book. Our series isn't that long, but you get to see the progression. You get to see them dive through that process. So we wanted to bring that back into our world. And these are just some of the elements that we decided that we felt were super important in our fantasy product, in our fantasy books, to bring those readers into the space that we loved when we were younger, when we were being introduced to fantasy. And Grayson and I have had dozens of conversations about what those elements needed to be, what they look like for us. And that is why the Wheel of Time, that is why the War of Night was constructed the way that it was. It was every decision, every moment was something that we meticulously crafted out. So we hope you enjoy book 1, book 2, book 3, and 4 as they come out. And a lot of work went into it. So we just wanted to kind of expose where we thought. Part 3 will be about the covers and some of our design choices there. So join us next time, Behind the Shadows.